Hey, 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 Nikki Brown here. No matter where you are, what part of the world you are in, I hope that you are having a good day. So, I kind of wanted to touch on why I say that. So, I had a really good friend, and I often refer to him as one of my best friends, right? And I would like to think that I was one of his best friends too, right? We didn't talk every day, we didn't talk all the time, but we were friends for 21 years. And at the age of 42, well, I was 41, he was 42, I lost him, right? We never had sex, we never kissed. Of course, we would give each other hugs. We met at work back in 1996, if I'm not mistaken. And we went out on a date, and I did not sleep with him. I did not have sex with him. So that made him feel some kind of way. So he went out on a date. Well, probably within a week or 2 weeks. It was really quick. I don't know how long. Um, but he came to me, like, because after that, he just considered me a friend, right? Which was fine. But he came to me and he said, I met this girl. She light skinned and she got a fat ass, but she evil. She mean. But it's all right. I can handle it. Cause I was like, "Are you sure?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm good. I got it." I'm like, "Okay." And they dated for a few years, at least 3 to 5 years. And she already had two older boys. I think they were maybe say between the ages of 9 and 10 at that time. And so he basically helped to raise the boys. Um, at that point in time in her life. And sorry, I get a little emotional when I tell this story, right? So he didn't want to have any kids, but she did. So, she would say she was on birth control when she really wasn't. Um, and they end up having 3 kids. And I think the first two are like 6 to 8 years apart. And then the last one might be another 6 years apart, something like that. What were they like? 19, 12, and 2 or 3? Something like that. Something like that. And friends for 21 years, we never, ever, ever, never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, ever had an argument. He was the type of friend, you know, if you had a flat tire at 4 o'clock in the morning, he would get up to help you come change your flat. And it didn't matter if you were male or female. If you consider him to be a friend, he would, do things for his friends out of the kindness of his heart without expecting anything in return, which is really how it should be. And so they end up having the kids. Of course, he took care of his own kids if he took care of her children, right? That weren't his. And he stepped up to the plate. Um, I hate to say this, but it doesn't matter at this point. I think after about 5 years of them being together, or 10 years of them being together, no, maybe 5 years of them being together, something like that, he gave her a ring. But he never had intentions on marrying her because she was too evil. So then at the 10-year mark, after her complaining, he gave her a bigger ring. He called it a hush ring. But again, he never had intentions of marrying her because she had such a nasty attitude. Um, and he, ironically, he was a Sagittarius and she was a Sagittarius too, but they were like the complete opposites. Like, she was his karmic. Like, she was the exact opposite of him. Not to say that he was perfect. I'm not saying that he was perfect at all. Um, but in terms of, you know, her attitude, it was very nasty, whereas he was very kind and, didn't like confrontation. Um, usually stayed very calm. And like I said, he was a very giving person. He gave to her, make sure she was in a house, made sure all their needs were met. He was working for New York Transit, and he was a manager. He also did comedy. Anyway, one day when he was at work, something fell on his head, and it gave him a knot on his head. And so he had surgery to remove the lump. She, you know, be, she didn't have a good relationship with her mom, right? So ironically, she turned the kids against him. His oldest daughter, because the firstborn was a daughter, a girl, she ended up kicking him. And again, the youngest was about 2 or 3, and he was autistic, so he didn't understand what was going on. But the two girls, the two older girls, she turned them against him and said negative things to make it seem like he wasn't a good father, although he had been there for them the whole time. I've seen one of my other best friends, also a Sagittarius, go through the same thing with another woman, who he ironically has 2 kids by. And she basically did the same thing. She had an older girl and then a son, and then they had a son together, and she turned those kids against him, and that's a whole nother story too. But he had the surgery. He didn't really rest. Like, he was still hanging out, he was still drinking, and he really didn't give his body the rest that he needed after having surgery on his whole brain. After he passed away, there was a video. He was in a barbershop, and he said to the barber, jokingly, he joked around all the time because he liked to make light of situations instead of, they say that saying, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. So he's, I forget the whole entire joke, but the barber said, well, where you going, man? He said, I don't know. I hope to heaven. Then he had another video of himself, like he was in a park, and he was saying that this is where he went to reflect. I have no idea where he was, but he was like overlooking the city and, you know, just kind of reflecting. Anyway, he was at work one day. His manager was in the office next to his office, and his manager just said one day, he heard a loud thump, and, that was it. And went to his funeral, which I'm not very religious. I consider myself to be spiritual, but not religious. But the pastor said, live each day as if it were your last. And I have heard that 1,000 times before. But that day, it just hit different. And so ever since then, I have made an effort to live my best life, right? To live each day as if it were my last. No matter what's going on, no matter what I'm quote unquote experiencing at the moment, no matter what I feel like I have or don't have. I've pretty much always been that type of person. If I can't do anything about it, I'm not going to worry about it, is what, I used to say all the time. Or, oh, well, it'll be all right. Or that person will be all right. And I would just move on, right? And I think I had lost sight of that over the years. You hear other people try to say, well, oh, that means you don't care. No, it doesn't mean I don't care, but I'm not going to stress or worry about it because, if you're so believe in the Bible, we're not supposed to stress or worry, right? So then why are we, you know, if you're supposed to pray and give it up, then pray and give it up and keep going with whatever is going on. And that has always worked for me. I've always had people look out for me. Um, I remember, at one point when I had my son, I had enough money to pay my rent, and my friends would bring me food, or I would go to my mother's house because I lived around the corner from her. But my friends at that time, they were getting food stamps. We would buy a bag of wings, some corn, and we ate good. Maybe even some rice, like mashed potatoes, a box of mashed potatoes. That was the thing back in the day. Um, real quick. Fry some wings, heat up some corn, and make some box mashed potatoes. And we would eat good. And I was the only one who had my own apartment, so everybody would come over to my house, and we would hang out and play cards and watch TV, you know, whatever. And like I said, just other people's fears and other people's doubts and insecurities over the years kind of swirled around in my mind. So I kind of lost sight of not worrying and just, it'll work out. Everything always works out. I used to always say, well, if God looks out for fools and babies, then I guess God gonna have to look up after me because, I just wouldn't worry about it. I would just do what I needed to do or do what I wanted to do, and it would work out every time. And so when the pastor said to live each day as if it were your last, again, it hit in a different way. And so now that's what I do my best to do. And it's not easy to be around people who stress and worry and complain. And it's like, there isn't anything that you can do about it, why are we talking about it? Why do we have to hear, the same complaint over and over again? And a lot of times I find myself nowadays saying, it's okay. It's going to be all right. And that kind of makes people think like that person is gone. Like not gone as in no longer here, but like say, you're in a store and the customer service representative is mean to you. If you want to report the person to the manager, then report the person to the manager. But to go home and you talking about it to, you got to call 10 people. You got to tell your wife. You got to tell your husband. You got to tell every person you come in contact with. You got to go to work the next day and still talk about it some more. Let it go. Life is too short. Because all that does is fester inside of us and make us angry or make us have diseases that we wouldn't ordinarily have because of the stress, the fear, the worry, the anxiety, right? Let it go. It's not that serious most of the time, I promise you. And anything that we're going through, it always works out, even when it doesn't seem like it did in the moment. And even if it doesn't go the way that we want it to go, right? It works out exactly the way that it's supposed to. So I just wanted to share that. And I need to take care of some business at Staples. So I'm on my way inside Staples, but again, I just wanted to share that with y'all. And as always, I love you. Mwah.